for some social studies this morning. Chapter 4, lesson 1, you were supposed to do vocab, people, places yesterday.
I did that.
So that should be done. You need to get your social studies notebook out, and I'm going to go over how we're going to do this chapter here in a few minutes. But first, you can label the next page in your notebook, Chapter 4, Lesson 1 notes, and we'll get started here in a minute.
Wait, can we take our masks off?
Not right now. They should be on right now. Because we're going to read and talk and all that stuff.
Read?
So masks should be on right now.
Mask is already secured. No, you have to start.
All right.
Pumpkin and water. Even though
You're going to need your iPad out as well. And in social studies, chapter 4 down here, you have open the lesson 1 PDF, which you should have used yesterday. And then you'll notice down here it says chapter 4, lesson 1 activities. So I'm going to click on that. And in here are the different things we're going to complete or accomplish for this particular lesson. Okay? So each lesson will have something new. We're going to work on this one and start it a little bit together.
Yay!
Okay?
Yeah.
And then the next lessons coming up, you'll be working kind of on your own. So the goal is you're going to read. We've taken notes multiple ways. We've discussed these different lessons, how to take notes, things that you should be looking for and writing down, right? Important facts.
Yeah.
Okay? We're going to talk a little bit more about some of the questions in the book that they ask you. Okay? And then once you've done that, we'll discuss it all together. So tomorrow I have a Zoom planned at 2 for everybody. We'll all get on. We'll share the answers that we found to those questions. We'll share some facts. Okay, so that way you'll have... No, gentlemen, excuse me. It is not cheating.
Yeah, it's not.
You're doing the work and then you're discussing. That is not cheating. Not even close.
Yeah.
So, Friday, tomorrow, that's what we'll do, okay? We'll go over and see what you have. We'll see what other people found for answering questions and other important facts that you wrote down. Each of these lessons covers the different colonies and how they started to create colonies and why they created colonies. We've kind of talked about that, right? Where they're coming in, they're claiming land, and then they're leaving. So how do people know this is still my land? Well, they don't. Okay?
Yeah,
So-
do they put flags?
No.
That's
Nope.
what they did to
Gentlemen.
the moon.
Okay? So lesson 1 is going to talk about the Spanish colonies. I wrote the page numbers up here. On your notebook or in your notebook, you should have written lesson 1 notes, and then I would write the Spanish colonies. Okay? So if I go back to my notes, I'm going to type in the Spanish colonies. Okay?
Cool name.
So this is the list of things you're going to do. Okay? The vocab Quizlet isn't quite ready yet. We'll get to that though.
Okay.
So the what to know question comes from, if you look in your reading textbook, or not your reading, your social studies PDF,
Cool enough.
all the way back at page 152.
Yeah.
Shh, we're listening right now. Okay? Oh, come here, PDF. Where did you go? There it is. So if I go to this last page, this is my question. The what to know question. Why did Spain set up colonies in North America? Okay, that's an important question that we need to answer while we're reading. So what do you think I should do with that question?
Write it down and then answer it.
I should probably write it down, right? Because that's going to guide my reading. That's what I'm looking for. So if I go back to my,
Is this where you get all the questions for us?
some of them, back to my activities, I'm going to write this question down. underneath where I wrote Chapter 4, Lesson 1 notes. Here it is. That's a question I need to answer. Why did they do this? Okay. Give me a second to get caught up here. Make sure you have all this down in your notebook. Writing this in your notebook. Well, we're waiting a minute here. We're writing. So we're all ready to move on. What she? Nope, it's just we're writing that question down.
So we don't
We're just
answer it?
writing the question down. No, because we don't know the answer to it yet. We have to read to find the answer. We haven't done that yet. Emmy?
Can I do the teacher?
Yeah, if you prefer the teacher, that's fine. All right, if I go back to my lesson 1 activities posted on Schoology, I looked at this question, I got my notebook all set up, I wrote this question down because I don't want to forget. Now it says to read, right? I have to read these pages to answer that question, but I also need to look at what else I need to do. Okay, it says write down 10 of the most important and interesting facts about the colonies. You're going to post one of those to share, and we're going to talk about some of them tomorrow as well. Okay, so these are like your notes, your most important facts, interesting facts that you can find. How can I, or what can I use to determine what's important and what's interesting? What have we been doing with these different lessons? Kenny?
What do you need to know?
Well, we need to refer to this, right? The what you need to know. Where else do I come up with questions? How do I create my own questions as I'm reading? Maya? Yeah, the headings, right? Subheadings. Okay, you might have some questions already because you looked at the vocab people and places. Why are these people in here? What did they do? What do they have in common? Okay, those are questions that you might think about to come up with some important details. Okay, we also have to answer the reading check questions. So after each big bold heading, you're going to see what they call a reading check question. If I pull back up here, our PDF, I will show you where they're at. So right here, see it says New Spain, down here reading check. Then I have slavery in the Americas, and I have another reading check. Some lessons have more than 3, some lessons will only have 2. It depends on how many big purple headings they have in each lesson. So that's part of what you need to do. Why am I requiring these reading checks? We talked briefly about them the other day. What do they help us do? Especially when they're titled Main Idea and Details. What do you think they help us do? Juliana?
At the bottom, they have a question,
Mm-hmm.
and if you didn't think about that question, you can even write it down.
If you didn't think about the question, you could what?
Write it down.
You could. You are going to write it down. You have to write the answers to these questions, right? So after you read it, we're going to answer the question. What do they do? It's called a reading check. Why would they be helpful? Why would they be helpful questions when I'm reading social studies? What have we been learning about in reading? What are some things we've done in reading to help us remember what we're reading, to help us kind of gather important information? Sean? We take notes. Okay, what do we do with those notes? Go ahead.
Study them and look at them and write them down.
We do. So this is kind of a similar thing, right? These questions are helping us take notes. All right. Juliana?
You can think about the main idea and about it.
Okay. So main idea and details generally leads to what when we're reading a nonfiction text? if I'm collecting main ideas and details, what is it going to help me do with this section later? Ooh, I'm thinking of a word. Starts with an S. Kind of rhymes with memorize. Ooh, Ava? What is it? Not study. Study and memorize don't rhyme. Adam? Summarize. So these are going to help us summarize all of this information, okay? Because they're focusing on main idea and details. Pulling out that information, it is going to help us study. That is a true statement, okay? Because it's going to give you facts and information that you need.
Nicole,
Yes.
doesn't memory and socialize rhyme? I mean,
Memory and summary.
yeah.
Yeah. Memorize, summarize, memory, summary.
Memory.
All right, let me exit out of this, and I'm going to go back to my notes. You're going to stay in there. So as we're reading, we're thinking of important facts to write down. Okay, and then when we get to the reading check question, we're going to answer that question. We're going to do this first section together called New Spain. I was going to listen, but I think I'll just read it. Okay, so we're following along. New Spain. By the 1500s, several European nations, including Spain, had sent explorers to claim land in the Americas. We talked about that, didn't we? That was what our last chapter was on. They're sending all these explorers, they're claiming land. Most explorers stepped onto a beach and claimed the land for hundreds of miles around. They knew little about the lands they were claiming. After claiming the lands, these explorers moved on. No one stayed behind to protect the claims. So here they are saying, this is mine, nobody else can have it, and then what do?
Leave.
They leave, right? Competing claims. What does that mean? Competing claims. That's subheading. Kenny?
Competing to see what has the most claim.
Okay, maybe seeing who has the most claims. So we're thinking of some questions, right? Good. Sean?
In these pictures, it kind of looks like a fort that we visited in St. Augustine.
Okay, could be. Something similar, sure. John?
They're like battle lanes, like if someone's trying to take over their claims, they can battle.
So like somebody coming in and claiming your land again, right? They're competing. They're who's going to end up with this claim. Okay, good. Other thoughts about competing claims before I read it? Ready? All right, so think about what they're competing for, right? How are they establishing who's winning or who gets to claim this land? Remember, important facts. That's what we're looking for. The European countries were competing with each other to win control of as much of the Americas as possible. Often, more than one country claimed the same land. Native Americans already lived in most places the explorers claimed. So you have how many different people possibly competing for this land? Kenny?
Thousands.
No, I don't know about, thousands as in individual people, but I'm thinking more like countries and Native Americans. Nick?
Probably like 100.
Well, again, you're thinking individual people. So if I have Native Americans and then, say, the Spanish and the French, how many people might be fighting over one piece of land? 3, right? You might have 2. You might have the Native Americans that are trying to protect their land, right? They were already there, and you've got all these other countries trying to come in and take the land over. So you might have multiple places trying to claim the same land. Usually no one paid attention to anyone else's rights or claims. Spain had already claimed large parts of the Americas. However, Spain learned that claiming land was not the same as controlling it. Spain came to understand that it needed to protect its lands in the Americas from other European nations. Spain also tried to overpower Native American tribes and take their lands. Spain formed colonies to protect its lands and to govern the people there. A colony is a land ruled by another country. The colony of New Spain was formed in 1535. With most of its land in Mexico and its capital in Mexico City, New Spain also included many islands in the Caribbean Sea and the Spanish lands north of what is now Panama. So we have to have a total of 10 facts. Does that mean I'm going to take my 10 facts from this section? No, I might take 2 or 3, okay? If I don't have 10, I can always come back at the end and maybe grab a few more. Okay, so what are some things that you found important from this particular section here, or interesting? What did Spain realize? Adam?
That they can't just claim land and walk away.
Right, they had to do what with it?
They have to defend it.
They have to defend it, right? They have to control it. Spain learned claiming land and controlling. I like that you used the word defending. We're going to say defend. Spain learned claiming land and controlling land. We're not the same. So that's one fact. Now I'm just writing facts, okay? So you might be organizing it a different way, and that's fine. Does this start to answer our question?
No, yeah.
Yes, it does. Okay. Give me a second, write that down.
Well,
Yes.
I don't have an actual pencil here, but can I write with a pencil?
How do you
not have a pencil? I don't. That's my answer, so go ahead and again.
Okay. What did they do to defend or control the land? What did Spain do to fix that problem? Joanna?
Spain formed colonies to protect its land and govern the people there.
Right, they formed colonies. Whoops, I'm not sure why I put an ED there. There we go. Spain formed colonies to protect the land they claimed, right? Okay. I realize this is probably hard to see in the video. Make the font bigger. There we go.
What, this one?
Yes.
Would, so say if Spain claimed land and
Mhm.
then they just went like 100 miles away and then they came back like 1 or 2 months later and then there's people building and like leaving and
I guess they're gonna have compete, right? They might
Yeah,
have
are
a
they
war
gonna
or
get,
something.
like, are they gonna get mad? Cause
Yeah.
they're gonna, Spain is gonna be like, this is our land, and then they're like, well, you were like, I know we
You were on vacation and left your land, so we
So-
took over, right?
We took over, you weren't here, so this is our land.
Exactly.
They're
So-
gonna have a war, and then the people
Right.
that have that land are gonna win.
That's what
And
happened.
technically, the Indians were their fort.
True.
So technically, it's their land.
But the Indians aren't defending that land either.
Well, and the Native Americans didn't feel like you should be able to own the land, and we read about that later down the road. They feel like it should be shared with everybody. Okay, one person can't say, this is my spot of land. Okay, we read about that a little later. Juliana?
You know what they should have done? So if you're traveling somewhere, you should get like a group of people, because if you find new land, some, like have the people could stay on that land and claim it and like,
Control it, right?
yeah,
That's
and
how the
then
colonies
to
came
have
into
the
play.
other people could say we found land and then more people would come.
Yeah. Maya?
So the native people would literally, like, the only sane people out of all of them.
Probably. Probably. Well, and keep in mind, too, we read about some of the explorers that came over and kind of befriended those Native Americans and then turned on them, right? So they thought they were friends and they were getting along, and then all of a sudden it kind of went a different direction. So, Ava?
If the Native Americans thought that people should have claimed land, then that would be like random people living in their own land.
Yeah, right. That would be kind of weird, especially nowadays with the way things are. All right.
That'd be very weird.
Let's look at our reading check questions. So I'm looking on page 149 down there where it says reading check, Manatee and details. How did Spain protect its claim in the Americas? So, our important things, did it answer that question?
No.
A little bit.
A little bit, right? How did it protect its claims? Adam?
They built forts.
Right, they made these colonies and built different things. Okay, so this would be the answer to my reading check question. So in order to show that, I might write RC next to it to remind me that this was my reading check, and I'm going to do like a question mark. Okay? So my important detail answered that question for me.
Everybody got corona now.
What?
I mean, like, no one's wearing masks anymore.
We should be.
There's like 70 people that are.
All right,
Corona. Yeah, a bunch of people didn't
Gentlemen.
have their masks on.
Yeah, he has no mask.
all right, let's turn the page, or go to the next page.
Cut from the virus.
Slavery in the Americas. So up here, I know some of you are trying to organize your notes here. You might put New Spain. Okay, that was our first heading. And then down here, I would put my next heading, Slavery in the Americas. And we'll see if we can find some other information here as we're reading. All right. Ready?
Well.
Writing still?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I got it.
Another minute.
Wait. Fine. Should be ready.
Miss Long,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we don't usually have much homework for social studies. We just writing down
Notes
notes.
and worksheets. Well, that's what social studies is. Learning to take notes and study. Not today. All right, slavery in the Americas. At first, very few Europeans settled in the Americas. Eli, I'm reading. I need you following along on your iPad. After more gold and silver were found, many more colonists came. They hoped to get rich. Others came to start large farms called plantations. By 1550, there were about 100,000 Spanish colonists spread across the Americas. To the south of New Spain, Portugal formed the colony of Brazil. The growth of slavery. Both Spain and Portugal needed many workers to grow crops and to mine gold and silver. They forced the Native Americans they had conquered into slavery. Slavery is the practice of holding people against their will and making them work without pay. Many thousands of Native Americans died from hunger and the work they did. Thousands more died from diseases that settlers brought with them from Europe. Diseases such as measles, smallpox, and influenza sometimes killed whole tribes. Some colonists became concerned about how the Native Americans were being treated. One such colonist was Bartholomew de las Casas. Las Casas was a landowner who later became a priest. He freed his enslaved workers and spoke out in favor of better treatment of Native Americans. As more Native Americans died, the colonists began to capture Africans to be enslaved workers. Most of these Africans were taken to Brazil or the Caribbean islands. Soon enslaved Africans were also working under terrible conditions. All right, let's think of some important facts. Why did slavery start to grow? So I look at that subheading. It says the growth of slavery. Why did it start to grow? Nick? Pretty much, right? They had these large, a plantation is a very large farm, so one person can't necessarily do it. So they had to get people to help them. Well, instead of hiring people and paying them, right, they were just forcing people to work on these farms. So slavery grew because plantations were growing. Okay. Yes, Josh.
Well, how did this all slavery all start?
Right here. They just told you. Right? They had these plantations. They needed people to work. Okay? They needed people to work on these big
Record's pretty
plantations.
short. He can't speak.
Sean,
Didn't it also say kind of somewhere in there that it started growing because members of like the members of their tribe, no, the people that were living there, they brought over diseases and they got sick, so they made them other people.
well, the Native Americans were getting sick, so then they started, yes,
Getting African.
right, started getting other people, yep. Adam? I guess it would depend. I think some, yes, they probably bought, and some you might say like,
They break into the house. Alright, you're in my slave now.
well, and they were bringing them over at some point for that purpose too.
They basically
So,
two ways. One of them, they kidnapped them.
there you go. I was trying not to use that word, but yes, they were kidnapped or they were buying
It's
them.
not kidnapped. It's pretty much woman or man.
So they
Well,
kidnapped
still.
Raptor?
Eli?
Did you say that like it's basically saying that 100,000 slaves died because they were sick?
No, it didn't say that many died. It just said that a lot died. It said 100,000 Spanish colonists were living in the Americas now.
So you're telling me there was a coronavirus in the 1500s?
Possibly, but they didn't call it the coronavirus. It was flu, like our typical flu that we have, and what else? Measles.
it was COVID-15.
All right, we need to continue.
It was
Maya,
COVID-15.
no.
Weren't like farms back then like really rich?
They were, yeah, some of them were. Some of those plantations were, and then you had some smaller farms that maybe weren't as rich, but the plantations being as big as they were could produce more. So they were, yep. Juliana?
Would some people want to be slaves, like to get some?
They don't get much.
They don't.
Yeah, they don't really get paid enough to survive. That's why so many of them died too, and it was terrible living conditions. Landon?
I cannot read.
No, sorry. Josh? All right, other facts. We've only got one. I think we need another fact. Or interesting detail or something. Jackson, what'd you come up with? Now, Bartholomew, you should have already written down, right? Why is he in here? Why is he important? Because he what? Yeah, he was somebody that was working against, right? The enslaving. So he said, no, we're going to free them. He was a landowner that let his slaves go. Okay, and he spoke out in favor of better conditions. Okay, you should have written that down in your vocab people places. If not, that's something I would add. Let's look at our reading check. How did slavery develop in the Americas? How did it develop? Adam? Right, so the land they claimed, they kind of enslaved those people, right? Those Native Americans, and then forced them to work on these big farms. So for our reading check question, we're going to write down here. Native Americans were enslaved after their land was claimed. Whoops. Was. Here we go. Claimed and forced to work. And then what happened to those Native Americans? Josh?
Well, they either died or they got very sick.
Yep, many died.
They died of COVID-15.
So what did those colonists do? So colonists did what? Who'd they use? Maya? Yep, they used enslaved
Wait, slow down.
African.
You're writing too fast for phone.
Well, that's because I'm typing. I'm gonna leave it up here. You're fine. Just trying to make it so it was bigger. There you go.
Where
I'll give you a second so you get caught up. There's a lot there.
source.
Do you think they still work when they're sick?
Yeah.
They had to.
More than likely, they probably were forced to. They probably didn't have a choice because they were trying to survive.
More
The way
than
they did that was
likely.
working.
Wasn't didn't Abraham
Yeah, Abraham Lincoln stopped slavery.
All right, let's write. Colonists, I need to make that plural. There we go.
I think the way the COVID-15 started was somebody ate a slave and then they got sick.
You'll have to wait. We're not done yet, almost.
That took a lot out of my hands.
Okay, we're ready. So,
Wait.
well, we're chatting already, so I'm going to move on. You have on page 151 and 152, settling the borderlands. What are you going to do? Do what? What did we do for these first two sections? Raise your hand. What are we going to do, Ava? Right, you're going to read it. You're going to answer the reading check question, and then you need to make sure you have, this lesson's a little shorter, so you might only have 8 facts, okay? But I want you to add some more facts to these first 2 sections as well, okay? So you have a third section down here, settling the borderlands, that you're going to do on your own. Reading, 2 facts here, reading check question answered, and then you need to add, so you have at least 8 facts for this lesson, okay? Total of 8. That's your assignment for today. Finishing these notes, adding some more facts, and then tomorrow we'll discuss what you came up with, okay?